again, everybody. It's Todd Sturridge, the horror nerd, here at the Horror Sideshow Flea Market in Edison, New Jersey. We're rapidly approaching Christmas, which is my favorite time of the year. And I am getting early Christmas presents at this event because I get to sit down and talk to some really cool people. With me today, I have Ellen Latzen and Scott Goldberg. Guys, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Thank you. Good.
Everybody says to me, Todd, you're the horror nerd. Halloween must be your favorite holiday. It is not. Christmas will always be my favorite holiday. So I really am happy to be sitting with you guys. So Scott, that was not nice. That was not nice. People are throwing coal at me, and I don't understand. That was not nice.
It sounds like you got to get yourself off the naughty list then.
I like being on the naughty list,
Right,
though.
well,
It's way much more fun.
Your coal is under here somewhere.
100%. That's okay. See what I have to put up with? But anyway, speaking of the holidays, Scott, I promise we will get to Forest Hills. But
this is important.
I literally just watched Christmas Vacation. Now, when you were making that movie, did you have any inkling that it was going to go on to become an all-time holiday classic?
None. I mean, nobody did from the cast, I don't think. Even those, Beverly and Chevy and Randy that were there throughout the franchise, I don't think that they really realized that they had lightning in a bottle. So, no, not at all.
Does it surprise you that after all this time, people still love the movie so much that they come to events like this to meet you and talk to you about the movie?
It's not surprising. It's delightful, and one of the reasons I think why the movie is so popular still is that it's timeless. The Griswolds and the humor and everything else is something that will stay throughout the ages. Even 36 years later, they're just as lovable, and people can relate to them just as much as they ever did back in the 80s. So that it's just wonderful for me to know that people love it after all this time.
100%. You use the word relatable. I come from a big Italian family, so there would be 25 people in my house at the holidays, and it would be utter chaos. So I totally could relate to the Griswolds at the holidays,
Nice.
And now my neighbors call me Clark Griswold because you can see my house from space at the holidays. The emergency power and everything. So totally can relate. So Ellen, how did you wind up getting your role? Was it an audition like any other? I know it's a little different as a child actor. So
So I got my start as the daughter in Fatal Attraction, and that was an open audition. They were looking for girls ages 6 to 8 with no acting experience, and there was a litany of things that they were looking for characteristically. And my mom saw this article in the paper, and she said, "Oh, Ellen fits the bill for this." And so she asked me if I wanted to audition, and I said sure, not thinking that it would result in something that would completely, put me on this train for the rest of my life. So I got the part in Fatal Attraction, and the casting directors for that film were Risa Brayman and Billy Hopkins, and they cast me in the 2 other features that I was in as a kid, which was Mr. North and then Christmas Vacation. But I did have to audition for all of those things. But once I started working with Risa and Billy, then they were kind of my foot in the door, I guess.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
But I earned my place in this classic film.
Fair enough. Now, I don't know how anyone kept a straight face ever making that movie. Do you have a favorite memory or a remembrance from making the movie that you could share with us?
There's no favorite. I mean, the whole thing was just so fun, and we were such a family on set and loved being together. And so the squirrel scenes were hilarious, and the Jelly of the Month Club scene, and the dinner table scene, and our arrival in the RV and seeing the house all lit up, and every part of filming was just wonderful.
I love it. I had an Aunt Bethany, right? She, not like that wasn't her name, but Aunt Bethany. The first time I saw the movie, I'm like, her name was Kitty, and I'm like, oh my God, Ma. That's Aunt Kitty, right? Because by that time, she was 90,
Yep.
And everything was just fun, like, you know.
That's amazing.
So yeah, again, just being relatable. All right, so Scott, let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about Forest Hills. How did you come to cast Ellen in the Forest Hills?
I think we were communicating on like social media, right, like Instagram prior, and there's another project my friend Dustin was looking to raise funds for, which he raised a little bit of money, but ultimately then he started opening his like shop in South Carolina. He like got financing from people and wanted to open up a hobby shop. Kind of put that to the side, and then as we're kind of looking over footage of the Forest Hills during like December of 2024, I was like, there's something more here. I feel like something is missing. So I started like rolling through all the footage and re-editing it, and I said, well, I feel like maybe if we add some stuff that could actually add to it. So then we started communicating, and would you like to come down and play a cameo for the day? And she said yes, and then from there we just kind of expanded on the scenes. Yeah.
Excellent. So Ellen, a question for you: was a horror movie something that you were keen to do? Or
yeah, I mean, it was for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I do a lot of these sorts of events, and horror cons are big. And Fatal Attraction is not really a horror movie, so couldn't really kind of sell myself in that way. So this was my way into that world, but it's also just a different genre than I was used to working in, and so for me, I'm somebody that kind of wants to experience as many things as I can in life, and so to help round out my experience as an actress, then yeah, I mean the more genres that I can work in, the better.
Excellent. Are you yourself a horror movie fan?
Nope.
I always find that's about 50-50. Like people who have been in horror movies, sometimes they're like, yeah, absolutely. And then other times, no. So not at all. Huh? Oh, that's all. I always find that fascinating.
I mean, there's some horror movies. Like when I was young, I liked Nightmare on Elm Street. And then when I was a little bit older, The Thing and Halloween 1 and 2, John Carpenter, those were movies that I enjoyed. But I mean, the gratuitous, violence and scary, that sort of thing, that does nothing for me.
Listen, that's legit. Like, you rattled off some legit horror movies, so I totally get that. So I've spoken to Scott now a few times about the Forest Hills and the fact that it was Shelley Duvall's last film, and then of course she sadly passed away. So what was that like? Just being in a film and working with basically a film legend.
We didn't get to film together because I came in after the fact. So that that's a bummer for me, but in the end, I still feel very grateful to take part in the final film, even though she and I weren't able to work together. And I'm glad that Scott gave me the opportunity to do that, and I hope that I help in making it something that Shelley would be proud of.
Awesome. Scott, one additional question for you. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, so if I asked you this before, I apologize. We had a rather long conversation about working with Shelley and everything. How do you think that her being in this indie film furthers her own legacy, but also sort of, I don't know if legitimizes is the right word, but just gives more credence to the indie film world? I think people don't really understand always what indie films are about. They think we're just a bunch of guys running around with iPhones, trying to make a movie. So speak to that if you would.
Sure. So I mean, I think like the cast and the crew are very important, and the people behind it, and being able to make the film and having people put in place to create a movie. I think that's important, and I think you got to find the right team of people. And Shelley, she was very sweet and kind, and unfortunately, as she had to deal with some mental health issues. Now, when we were filming, main stuff were like her physical issues with her foot and whatnot. So that so we had to work around that. Yeah, so I'd love to have shot more with her and done like scenes with her walking and and whatnot. But her mobility was, kind of limited. So we were aware of that, and just made sure we spoke with Dan Gilroy, her partner, and just. We all worked together to make sure she was as comfortable as possible. So at Legitimacy, I think, taking her away from that Dr. Phil situation and giving her an opportunity which she was thankful for, I think that, any independent film at this point, if you can try to get, a name in there or whatever, that could be helpful. So, because, if Shelley wasn't in it, I don't think it would have as much pull as it does in the community, because she's such a legend, and we're just very thankful to have worked with her.
So what I like about your film, Scott, is a lot of times, and being an indie film,
Yes.
person myself, I think a lot of times people will sign on a name,
Right.
spend their whole budget, and don't really think about story or anything like that.
Right.
And they're like, oh, but I got the such and such name. What I like about your film is the way you really integrated her into the story. It's not just, hey, we have Shelley Duvall, and how do you like that?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that aspect of it.
It's similar to like Ellen. Like Shelley was just like a cameo type of thing. I mean, I remember two of the crew members went up to Texas and filmed with her. This is one of the scenes where she's going back and forth with Rico, saying you're a murderer and all this other stuff, and going back, what's wrong with you, and all this back and forth stuff. That was her only scene. And I remember when the trailer was released, people said online, I bet you this is the only scene she's in. And I was like, shit, you're right. So, and then when I asked her, I said, how would you like to film more? And she wanted to film, she said to two people who went there, the crew, I like this, but I want to actually act with other people. So we set it up to where she, started working with Felissa Rose and also Chico, and we kind of just expanded from there. And the last 2 days of filming, I think myself and a couple others, my first time going down to work with her directly in person, she was very, very sweet and very kind, and it was just having that personal time with her was really nice. And Nick Greystone, one of the producers, he was there as well, and so we're Alex Laba and Brian Michael Finn, they were behind the scenes videographers. Crystal Woodham, who's one of the executive producers, we all went down. We spent 2 days. We got an Airbnb. It was interesting. The Airbnb was kind of like a mobile home, sort of, on this lot of land in Texas, and it was 10 minutes from Blanco. So I'll never forget that. Just having these little small mobile homes without the front wheels or anything. It was just kind of a little thing. But and then traveling to Shelley's house, she lived on a long dirt path. They actually had an estate sale not too long ago, where it was kind of weird to see because people were going in her house, buying her items, her clothing, and all those things, and now it's just vacant, and they're selling the home. It's just sad, but I think with Ellen too, it's film is a moment in time. It's a time machine, right? It's you are only capturing the past. People could pass, the older people in the film, the Christmas Vacation, the grandparents, right? But they'll always be immortalized on film because of that. So I feel it's the same thing with Shelley. We got Art the Clown over there. Come over here now. So it's everything gets. I think everything gets immortalized when it comes to film. I love watching Scrooge. Do you watch Scrooge throughout?
We just watched it last night.
Scrooge, there you go. So Scrooge, my wife and I watch it all the time. Every Christmas, after Christmas Eve, we watch every Christmas. It's there are people in that film who have passed, since, and it's a time machine. I think that's the most beautiful thing about film as a medium is you can go back in time, and that's why I think that's something very important. Sure.
Scott, I was just saying that the other day about Darren McGavin in A Christmas Story, right?
Yeah.
I loved him in Kolchak the Night Stalker and
Right.
A Christmas Story, and you're right, it's immortal, right? That movie will live on forever, as will he. So, very cool.
Yeah.
So, Ellen, one final question for you. What do you? Any new projects coming up? What else are you working on these days that you can share with us?
Thank you. So The Forest Hills was my return to acting, and and I always like to say that because Scott did give me that chance. But just in the last month or two, I played a small role in a short film called It's About Time, and that's coming out at some point. I'm not sure if it's just going to be a theatrical release or a streaming release, but that's coming out at some point early next year. And then I also played a cameo in a mockumentary called Carbondalian: Fire in the Pond, which is about a UFO sighting in Carbondale, PA. And then in February, I have an upcoming shoot for an indie film called The Retailer. So I've got some stuff going on.
Excellent. Busy is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ellen, thank you so much for a few minutes of your
Thank
time.
you.
It was
Yeah,
an
my
absolute
pleasure.
Scott, my friend, it is always good to see you. I wish you both much success in all your future endeavors, and I hope you have a happy holiday.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you. Todd Sturridge, the Horror Nerd, here at the Horror Sideshow Flea Market, signing off. We will see all of you in the next interview, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.